Hello YouTubers, this is Jeff again. Today we're going to go over how to pressure check your cooling system on the 360. Actually this will work on most vehicles, but we're going to do it on the 360 today and then talk about some potential weak areas on the 360. So let's go get started.
Okay everyone, this is a tool that you can either buy online or rent from your local tool store or parts store. It's a pretty simple kit. It has a bunch of adapters here that can be used for different vehicles. This is the one that we're going to use today on the Ferrari. And then this is the pump that pressurizes the system. It has like a little gauge here, and you got your pump. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the cap here and then take your cap off your reservoir. And then what you want to do really is, let me grab a light over here. And you want to look at your antifreeze, especially on the 360 here. You want to make sure it's nice and green and doesn't have an iridescent look or looks like it has a film on it. If it does, that's an indication that your air or water, oil, heat exchanger could be bad. So you don't want that. I mean, if you see that, I would immediately stop driving your car and investigate. And anyway, this pressure check will tell you if you have any issues. It would probably show up on the pressure check, or it should show up on the pressure check when you do this. Also, if you figure that you have a problem with the heat exchanger, you can look at the oil in your transmission. But anyway, we're going to pressure check the cooling system at this point. So what you want to do is you're going to want to screw this cap on. This here is kind of finicky because it's aluminum. Aluminum doesn't interface very well. A lot of them are plastic. But you want to screw it on there, make sure it's nice and tight, because if you have any leaks here, your test won't pass. You'll fail your test. So just make sure it screws down nice and tight. And then once it's secure, we can go here and then get our tool to pressurize. All right, so we're gonna, it's kind of like a quick disconnect. So we're gonna put this on here, slide this collar back, and it should engage. Okay, now this little butt on the side here is a relief. That's to let the pressure off. So we're not gonna mess with that at this point. So what we want to do is we're going to pump this up between 15 to 20 psi, and I wouldn't go any more, because if you go, you could damage some stuff. So you kind of want to stay between 15 and 20, and then we're going to pump this up, and then we're going to let it sit for a few minutes and then see if we have a pressure drop. So let me go ahead and pause this video, and then we'll put some pressure on here and then continue. Okay, now that we have pressure on the system, and you can check for leaks where you connect it to the cap on that, because if you do have a leak, your pressure will drop. And we're going to let this sit here for a few minutes and then make sure we don't have a pressure drop or a significant pressure drop. So in reality, if the system is a very tight system, you should not have any kind of a pressure drop. So we'll let it sit here for 10-15 minutes and see what happens.
Also, I wanted to notate while you're pressurizing the tank with the pump, you should probably give it a good minute or two to stabilize before you start your timer. Like I said, we're going to do 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, you could go longer, but the longer you go, most likely you're going to lose air pressure somewhere else, and you're going to think you have a leak in the system, but it may be in your tube or your connection here. But right now we're coming up on 5 minutes, and it's like really maintaining a good pressure here. So I mean, if you're visibly dropping, I mean, you definitely have an issue. But if it's stabilized and you don't have a sweeping needle, I would say your system's pretty tight at this point. But we'll give it a few more minutes.
Okay, it's been about 10 minutes since we pressurized this reservoir, and you can see the needle is pretty much where it was when we started. So
I would almost guarantee that this was a very tight system. I wouldn't worry about any leaks at this point. I mean, at this time, we can just relieve the pressure. And on this particular model here, like I said, most of them have the same or similar. You just push this little button on the valve here and you'll see the pressure release off the tank here. And then once that's done, just pull back on the coupler. We'll take this away. We'll go ahead and then unscrew the cap here. Check your reservoir again, just to make sure there's no abnormal looking fluid in there. And then the reservoir should be to the point where you could touch it with the fluid. Really fuller than that, you've got too much fluid in it, especially when it's cold like this. I mean, as it gets hotter, it'll rise. But we're doing this test with it cold, and which is preferred because you don't want to do this really when it's hot, because the fluid's hot and it's just dangerous. So after we get done there, we'll just put the cap back on. And this is always a pain. Get lined up, put the cap back on, and that really concludes this test for pressurizing the cooling system and checking the components if you have a known leak or whatever that you're doing. But if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. We'll continue to make a few more. Thanks again. Bye.